Thanks for watching the Real News Network. I'm Kim Brown in Baltimore. American motorists have been enjoying lower gas prices for most of 2016, but if you've noticed a spike in prices at the pump lately, it's due in part because of an oil pipeline leak in Alabama. The spill happened a week ago in Shelby County, and CNBC is reporting that over 250,000 gallons of gasoline have spilled into neighborhood retention ponds. Colonial Pipeline, who owns the pipeline, has constructed a bypass and says the pipeline will be restarted by Wednesday. But this raises a greater concern, an issue about the safety of oil pipelines, and it actually highlights precisely the protests that the Standing Rock Sioux tribe have been engaging in against the Dakota Access Pipeline. And joining us today from Indianapolis, Indiana is Steve Horn. Steve is a research fellow for DeSmogBlog. He's also a freelance investigative journalist whose work has been featured in The Guardian, The Nation, and Truth Out. Stephen, thank you so much for being here.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Stephen, I was actually under the mistaken impression earlier this week that there had been two oil pipeline spills, the one in Alabama and another one in the Yellowstone River up in Montana. But upon further investigation, many people on social media were retweeting an article from the New York Times from 2011 about this Yellowstone River pipeline spill. And there have been at least one more since then. And the Yellowstone River is still dealing really terribly with the outcome from these two pipeline spills. But it really highlights what the Standing Rock Sioux tribe's protest has been all about. What is the latest on the Dakota Access?
So the latest on the pipeline right now is sort of in hiatus on only one part, and that is the 20 miles east and west of the Missouri River and Lake Iowa, which connects to it, which is located on also near sacred land that the tribe in the area, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, has claimed. There's sacred sites, sacred burial grounds. The water itself is important to the tribe. So the Obama administration announced on September 9th that it will be. They asked for a voluntary hiatus by Dakota Access to stop building the pipeline in that area. Meanwhile, it is important to point out the very rest of the pipeline. They have all the permits they need from all of the states that the pipeline goes through and all of the right-of-way access from private landowners to build the rest of the pipeline. So what we're really talking about is a small but important area that is not yet built. And so that is what remains, and that's what the fight will be about in the coming weeks and months as we look forward.
So this is not about just the people in North Dakota who are being impacted, because you have a piece up on your website, DeSmogBlog, about the Dakota Access, the Energy Transfer Partners, the company that is constructing the Dakota Access Pipeline, the Bakken Oil Pipeline through Iowa. How is this pipeline also impacting Iowans as well?
Well, right. So many people have only learned about this pipeline, and I praise the activists. I praise the Standing Rock tribe for putting it on the public radar in the fight over water in the Missouri River. But this is a fight that's actually been going on for a couple of years. We've been covering it since really it was put on the public radar in Iowa, and it was at that time, about a year and a half ago, it was really kind of libertarian and farmers and also progressive activists in Iowa who were against the pipeline going through their state. The pipeline actually cuts directly halfway through that state. It bisects the state and then goes on to the state of Illinois and ends in Patoka, Illinois. And also, besides North Dakota, it also goes through South Dakota. So in this past couple of years, right now we're talking about federal permits, but in these past couple of years, Dakota Access had to get permits from all four of those states, and they did get them. And the biggest fight was definitely in Iowa. It didn't end up being much of a topic of public discussion in the primaries months ago, but it was something that was raised by both Rand Paul as a libertarian and by Bernie Sanders, of course, who came out against the pipeline before the Iowa caucuses. So this is something that's, of course, been on the public radar for a while. In a smaller way, it's really gained national attention in the past month or two.
Steve, you had another piece about how the Dakota Access the Pipeline, the owners of the company, the Energy Transfer Partners, were they creating fake social media accounts in order to troll activists online? What's the story about that?
So, that's a great segue. So, there's a coalition that was formed really because of the fight in Iowa called the Midwest Alliance for Infrastructure Now, and it was formed by a PR firm in Iowa called the G2 Group, and it really kind of ended after the thing got pushed through Iowa and they got the permits and they built the pipeline through that state. But that same front group, the Maine coalition, was brought back for a revival because of what's happening in North Dakota, and now a new PR firm is controlling that coalition. It's called the firm is DCI Group. It's a DC based, powerful kind of right wing, GOP centric firm. The political director for the Trump campaign used to be the president of the DCI Group, Jim Murphy. So they're very well politically connected, and other players too from the firm going into and out of the revolving door, including the spokesman for the Maine coalition now, who formerly worked in the Bush campaign, formerly worked in the Romney campaign. So long story short, on the Maine coalition, the social media accounts, is that I noticed on Twitter that there were some oddball tweets coming out of fake-looking accounts with pictures sometimes of famous singers, famous actresses, famous models tweeting in support of the pipeline, singing basically the same tune as the Maine coalition. So I spotted that one day, looked the next day as I was writing the article, and almost all of those accounts were gone, except for maybe two of them. But I took snapshots or screenshots of them and wrote an article basically. I can't say with 100% conclusivity, but it seems pretty likely that the Maine coalition was behind it based on the fact that the messaging basically reflected perfectly what they were saying. They, of course, denied it, but they were a group that Maine came back along right when protests heated up again after the Labor Day weekend, where the dog bite incident happened, and where this thing really got put into the public radar. DCI Group got involved right at the beginning of September, and they're still very involved. I think that really shows DCI Group was brought on for crisis communications. It shows that I think Dakota Access and Energy Transfer Partners, the company that owns it, does see what's happening at the Standing Rock Tribe and at the Sacred Stone Camp as a crisis, given that they brought on a pro in crisis communications to handle the situation.
That's pretty interesting that social media trolling is now a component of crisis communication. So that's a very interesting take on that. But Steve, we are hearing repeatedly from most of our elected officials, including the President of the United States, Barack Obama, and the oil and gas industry, continuously touting the safety of oil pipelines, how it is supposedly the safest means of transporting crude oil across great distances. But how safe is it really when we continuously see these oil spills happen often? I mean, the oil spill in Alabama, this particular pipeline runs from Texas to North Carolina. I mean, many are viewing it as a blessing in disguise that the oil spill, or the gasoline spill rather, is being contained to these retention ponds, but it very easily could have spilled into a body of water that people drink out of, or over land where it would be virtually impossible to clean up a gasoline or an oil spill. So how safe is this method of transportation of oil really?
Well, it's interesting. A couple of things raised here. One, the industry and the Maine coalition and others have been pointing to the fact that, well, if we don't move this stuff through pipeline, it's going to move by rail. And look at rail, it explodes. Look at the track record on that. They point to the bomb trains. It's a little bit disingenuous because this is a pipeline that's going north to south. Those trains are still going to be moving east to west. There's really no pipeline infrastructure to move this Bakken fracked oil east or west. So both are going to exist under the regime that they know is going to exist. The companies, the industry is fully aware, but they're telling the public that it's one or the other. And then also, of course, the safety of pipelines themselves. Of course, looking at what they say, every pipeline in recent memory that's been controversial, companies have come out and said this is the safest built pipeline in the history of pipelines. Right now, they're saying that about Dakota Access. Before that, they were saying it about the Keystone XL pipeline. And usually, the track record is that it's not like every day these pipelines are exploding and spilling, but their accidents happen for sure. There's not the best track record, as you pointed to. You look at the Kalamazoo River spill several years ago, which was the biggest on-land oil spill, but that one was carrying tar sands. So there's really, that I know of, no huge track record of this Bakken oil spilling or exploding or doing anything so terrible. In a way, the biggest concern still should definitely be climate change and the impacts of pumping that oil out of the ground. But at the same time, these are called accidents for a reason. You don't know, something could go wrong and then an accident could happen, and it could have water impacts like the Kalamazoo River, like the Yellowstone River for the Exxon oil spill a few years ago in Montana. So it can happen, and when it does happen, it has devastating impacts on the surrounding communities and on the water. So it is, we'll see. The jury is out on whether this is yet again the safest pipeline ever, as they're touting, or whether maybe in the future there will be a spill. It remains to be seen.
Steve Horn is a freelance investigative journalist. His work has been featured in The Guardian, The Nation, and Truth Out. He is also a research fellow for DeSmogBlog. You should check out his work there. Steve, we appreciate your time and your analysis today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And thank you for watching the Real News Network.